Arbitration Without a Gun, a critique of David Friedman's rights enforcement under evolutionary capitalism. Introduction. David Friedman's market-based approach to rights enforcement is one of the most intellectually respectable libertarian theories, grounded in consequentialism, not metaphysics. In his vision, private protection agencies would compete to defend clients and resolve disputes through arbitration, not coercion. However, under evolutionary capitalism, where power, capital, and legitimacy follow evolutionary profit rather than moral absolutism, Friedman's arbitration framework reveals a critical flaw. It only works if backed by government force or some sacred moral authority. Without that, arbitration becomes just another business, and one that can be outcompete. 1. Friedman's arbitration depends on government muscle. Today, arbitration functions because government courts enforce the outcome. If a party refuses to comply, the winner can petition a court, obtain a legal judgment, have the sheriff seize assets. Friedman assumes you can strip away the state and still preserve the binding power of arbitration. But in evolutionary capitalism, no contract enforces itself, no decision carries weight unless someone will defend it, and arbitration is only as powerful as the profitability of enforcing it. Thus, Friedman's model quietly relies on the very state power it seeks to eliminate. Without it, arbitrators can be safely ignored, unless enforcement finds it profitable not to. 2. Enforcement maximizes profit, not procedural legitimacy. In evolutionary capitalism, enforcement agencies do not obey arbitration rulings out of principle or contract. They obey profit. If a Lockean homesteader wins an arbitration decision based on ancestral occupancy, and a high bidder with greater expected productivity funds enforcement, then enforcement asks, which option increases evolutionary profit? The answer is to enforce the high bidder's claim and ignore or violate the ruling if necessary. This is not injustice. It is the dominant evolutionary strategy. Friedman's framework, by contrast, assumes enforcement behaves like a reputation-sensitive gentleman, when in reality reputation itself is defined by productivity under uncertainty. 3. Arbitration cannot exist without force or evolutionary fitness. Friedman sees arbitration as a peaceful alternative to violence. But arbitration is only stable when it selects for productivity, its decisions maximize reputational and economic return, and enforcement agencies choose to honor it based on their own incentives. Once arbitration begins making decisions that reward inefficiency, moralism, or subjective Lockean claims, it becomes economically unstable. Unlike government, which can enforce dysfunctional laws by fiat, Friedman's model lacks such a mechanism. Arbitration must either produce profit-maximizing rulings or be abandoned. 4. The business of arbitration is only stable when evolutionarily aligned. Arbitration can still be a profitable and stable business under evolutionary capitalism, but only when it behaves correctly. It must reduce enforcement costs, facilitate faster capital turnover, improve predictability and coordination. The moment arbitration starts defending inefficient owners, its value declines, its reputation decays, and it is replaced by systems that more directly reward productivity. 5. Repeated games don't save arbitrators who undermine productivity. Even in a repeated game framework, arbitration doesn't gain moral authority. It only survives if it consistently produces rulings that align with evolutionary outcomes. Enforcement agencies will preserve arbitration only if it becomes an instrument of long-term profit and reputational advantage. If it does not, they will violate it, and suffer no evolutionary penalty for doing so. 6. Why arbitration dies in evolutionary capitalism. In evolutionary capitalism, the need for arbitration vanishes because the bid system already functions as a self-enforcing mechanism for determining rightful ownership. The highest bid, weighted by reputation and backed by credible funding, reflects the expected productivity of ownership. It is, by design, a probabilistic judgment of who can use the property most efficiently. There is no need for a separate arbitration process. The bid itself is the verdict. The reputation system acts as the enforcer by punishing obstruction. If a lower bidder attempts to resist the outcome, whether based on libertarian rights, Lockean ethics, or emotional attachment, the system imposes a reputational penalty equal to the productivity lost by blocking the more efficient use of capital. Thus, arbitration is functionally replaced by an integrated public feedback loop. The reputational system communicates the opportunity cost of conflict. Moral appeals that fail to correspond with real productivity are seen as system inefficiencies, and evolution selects against them. Under this system, all agents know, choosing to go to war against a credible high bidder results in reputational loss. Over time, this renders formal arbitration not just obsolete, but wasteful and evolutionarily irrational. Conclusion. David Friedman's vision of peaceful, market-based dispute resolution is commendable in intent and rational in design, but incomplete. His model relies implicitly on government enforcement or a universal moral framework that cannot be assumed in an evolutionary system. In evolutionary capitalism, enforcement follows the highest bidder, not contracts. Arbitration survives only if it delivers evolutionary profit. Rulings based on ethics instead of productivity are bypassed or forcibly reversed. Arbitration without profit is unstable. Arbitration without force is irrelevant. Arbitration without alignment is dead. Friedman's arbitration can only function where reputation and productivity coincide. Once they diverge, profit-maximizing enforcement abandons it, and the guns return.